We're just a few months away now from the replacement of the Huracan, and this is going to most likely be called the Lamborghini Temerario, and I can't wait to see what this will look like. Now, carwow.co.uk, I'm going to link this article down below. They have made renderings of this, which I think is spot on when you compare the renderings to the spy photos that we've seen in the videos. So we're going to talk about this design. I'm going to let you know exactly what I think about it in Photoshop from a front, side, and rear, comparing these renders to the spy photos. Before we do that, let's have a look at this article from CarWow. Again, link down below if you want to check the full article out to see what we know so far, because this engine sounds like a complete beast of an engine. Even though it's probably going to be a little heavier than the Huracan because it is a hybrid system, it's still going to have about 900 horsepower in total. So the new Lamborghini Temerario is coming this summer, probably in August, to replace the Huracan, and the brand has confirmed that it'll use a hybrid V8 engine with 3 electric motors. You have same tri-motor hybrid system as you have in the Revuelto. Styling cues comes from the Revuelto as well, and you have full reveal expected this summer. So this new Ferrari 296 GTB alternative is going to use an all-new, completely brand new twin turbocharged V8 engine paired with Revuelto's tri-motor hybrid system, making 800 horsepower, and that is before you put in electrification in this. So this isn't the same engine used in the Urus or the Audi RS Q8. It's an all-new unit designed specifically for the new Lamborghini Huracan replacement, and this V8 pumps out 800 horsepower, which is 160 horsepower more than any Huracan produced, and that's before, as I said, you add in the electrification. So the final number is probably going to be closer to 900 horsepower, and that is going to not step on the toes of the Revuelto's 1000 horsepower, but it's coming very close. And this is a smaller car, so the 0 to 60 times is probably going to be very close to the big brother. It's going to have electric motors between the engine and the 8-speed dual clutch gearbox. You also have one electric motor on each of the front wheels to make it an all-wheel drive car, and it revs to, listen to this, 10,000 RPM. You get peak power at 9,000 RPM, which means that this is going to be a screamer. Hopefully, the regulations in Europe is not going to mute this car too much, which is a concern I have with new Lamborghinis and Ferraris these days. And I don't think the internal combustion engines are going anywhere. Lamborghini recently stated that they're not gonna go and make supercars that are electrified because they see that people who want supercar and hypercars, they are not buying electric versions of those. For example, the Rimac Nevera, for example, is not selling. It's still on sale, even though it's a very limited production car. So Lamborghini is not going to go in that direction. Ferrari has a brand new V12. And on top of that, Aston Martin is also coming out with a brand new V12. Now, the styling here, even though it is fully camouflaged in these photos, you can still see pretty much all the small design details and even the graphics of this car. I love this new side vent that we have going back to the Gallardo instead of having it be too complex. This feels like a very clean and still have this iconic Lamborghini wedge design. So from a side view, it's going to be unmistakably Lamborghini, where you have one single curvature across from the rear end point all over the greenhouse and into the front end. In addition to that, you're also going to have some brand new daytime run lights that sit down below in the grille, which looks to be super thick. And they also have this hexagonal shape to it, obviously this being a Lamborghini. The rear end looks super crisp as well, with very thin brake lights and a giant rear diffuser similar to the one that we have on the Revuelto. There is a small chance that this might come out as a rear-wheel drive version as well. I do think they're gonna do it. They did it with the Gallardo, they did it with the Huracan, and I do think just removing some of the weight when it comes to the battery packs and so on, and just making it a rear-wheel drive version would be a good idea, even though it might not have 900 horsepower. Not sure if you want 900 horsepower if your Lamborghini is rear-wheel drive only. It's going to be some traction problems there. So this is scheduled to go on sale in August, and the price is probably going to be between somewhere in the range of $250,000 to $350,000. So with that said, let's jump into Photoshop here and have a look at these beautiful renderings by CarWow. and compare it to the spy shots that we have on the right side from Motor One. I'm going to link that article down below as well if you want to go and read that. So looking at this design, this front fascia feels like a brand new front fascia for Lamborghini, which it is, but it still has a lot of Lamborghini design cues. For example, these lines here that goes in the opposite direction of what we're used to seeing. Usually what these lines do is they go from a thin point in the front end down here to a larger point. We kind of have that line here as well. You can see that in the fenders up top, but we need to have this inverted triangle in the hood to make it a proper Lamborghini. I also love that we have just a simple line here, but keep in mind that this is going to be the, of course, they're just going to drop the base model at first, and then you're going to have the Performante, probably an STO, a Technica further down the line. So this styling is going to get a lot more aggressive as time goes on. But I do love what we have, what we're seeing right now from these spy photos with these big daytime run lights at the bottom. Very clean and sharp looking design. Small intake in the front end, very chiseled headlights. One detail I'm not so sure about in these renderings are these daytime run lights up here in the main headlight unit. I don't like when they're this thin. I think Lamborghini made a mistake with the new Urus as well to create those very thin daytime run lights in the headlights. I do definitely prefer the Y shape that we have in the pre-facelift of the Urus, for example. I do hope that they make something cooler than this. This looks almost BMW-ish to me, and I want to see something cooler than that. But here you have the real car. You can see just how close this is to the renderings. I think Carwow has made a fantastic job rendering this car based off of these spy photos that we have here. Maybe it looks like the front intake looks to be maybe a little higher up than what we have in the rendering here. This looks very, very thin, this height in the front, and looks a little taller when we look at the production or the camouflaged version. And I do think that's a good idea. Even though this looks very chiseled and athletic, I want to have a little bit more mass in the lower section, just like we have on, at least looks to be in the production version. Now looking at the side view here, if you squint your eyes, it feels like a mix between a Lamborghini Gallardo and a Lamborghini Aventador, and that is not a bad thing at all. What I love here is in the Revuelto, we have a very complex side intake in the case of the Big Brother, but here you can see just how cleaner this is, how much more clean this is. I really like this intake that we have up top, and of course this line is what I'm talking about. One single curvature going from the very end point in the rear end and then stretching all the way down, dipping almost in one single line into the front end. This is the wedge design that we need to see in Lamborghinis, and that is obviously intact here. It looks like in this case, let's see the spy photos here. We can't really see the wheel size here because these are blacked out, these photos from Motor One. But you can see here again, it feels like the front end is sitting a little higher than what it does in the renderings over here, and that is, in my opinion, a good thing. We still have, of course, the wedge design, but looking at this area, if we just separate this area right here and zoom in on this to me looks like a classic Gallardo feel, and that is fantastic because we still have the A-pillar sitting almost right on top of the mid part of the front axle, and that is an insane proportions that only Lamborghini does well. Ferrari moves this A-pillar backwards a little bit to about this area and have more of a curvature to it, but Lamborghini keeps that wedge design that we want to see. And you can see that the intake clearly is going to look very close to what we have in the renderings here. It looks like we do have sort of 21s maybe in the rear and 20s in the front. In this case, I would like to have both sizes be the same. So I would like to have 21s or whatever we have in the rear end here, the same size in the front end, but I doubt that is going to happen. I do believe Lamborghini is going to go with a staggered setup for this car. Now looking at the rear end here and comparing it to the spy photos, I love what they did here. They just said slap on some prints of the LP640 Murcielago taillights on the camouflage, And I think we're gonna fool everybody to think that this is just another old Lamborghini, but that's not gonna happen. We can clearly see that this is a brand new model, obviously, even though they played around a little bit with the graphics of the taillights. You can see that the exhaust pipe sits in the similar position that we have on the Revuelto up here. Huge exhaust pipe, and we also have probably an active spoiler down in the very back that pops up if you need to. Now, looking at the rendering here and comparing this to the spy photos, looking at the rendering, it feels a lot like a McLaren in the back when you have these type of graphics. Specifically, this opening reminds me a lot of the, I think it is the 570, that has a very similar opening to this one. But of course, you need some special graphics when it comes to Lamborghini. So we do have, in this case, in these renderings, we do have Y-shaped taillights for this design, which I think looks great. This looks so much better than the small, thin, weak-looking Daytona lights that we have in the front end. I would much rather have something thicker like this and way more dynamic. I also like the black housing that we have for it. A massive diffuser in the rear end. The rear tire is completely exposed when you look at this from a straight rear view, and that is what you want to have. That is going to properly make these trap muscles from a rear view and then plant the car, and you can see the width of the rear tires, similar to what we have on the new Lamborghini Countach as well. Has a very similar design to that and looks super planted as well. So I'm looking forward to this design. A couple of key takeaways are that I feel like Lamborghini is going back to a more traditional design language, which is great because, as I said, this feels like a combination of a Gallardo and an Aventador in a smaller, much more modernized package when it comes to the drivetrain. So the design from these renderings look fantastic, and then we have the new twin-turbo V8 revving up to 10,000 RPM with 900 horsepower, all-wheel drive. This is simply, there is no way this is not going to be a proper beast when it comes out, and I can't wait to see it in real life.